council meeting on Monday, August 22nd. It is now 5:30 p.m. and I'll call the meeting to order. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the consent agenda? If so, are there any items that you would like to see removed at this time? If in fact there are not, or while you're considering that, I'm going to let everyone know that Councillor Dallas is joining us remotely, and as is our special guest, Minister Orr's support staff, Savannah Johansson as well. Thank you all for joining us as well. Back to business. Consent agenda. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Appreciate that. Anyone else? All those in favor? Thank you. And then down for our regular agenda. Do we have any additions, deletions, reordering preferences, anything like that nature? If not, we'll need a motion. The current format is acceptable. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Very good, thank you. So that brings us down to our first item, item number 4 is listed on your agenda. Special guest today, we want to thank Minister Orr, Minister of Culture and Status of Women, and our MLA for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you and bring it here to bring us up to date on happenings of our Alberta government. Minister Orr, I think you know how all that equipment and whatnot works. And I don't know if you heard me earlier, your press secretary is online as well.
Yeah, I see your name there. So
very good.
Wonderful. Glad to see you're here, Savannah. Am I on? You hear me?
Sorry, Mayor Creasy, just point of order. We didn't vote for the adoption of the agenda.
That's a good point, and that's why I invited MLA up, or MLA up to vote too. Nice save, right? My apologies. Was there any other items with respect to the agenda? All those in favor? Thank you for keeping us, or keeping me on track. I appreciate that, Coordinator Bellabono. MLA Orr, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you on this beautiful summer day. It's actually nice to have some really cool summer weather. So enjoying it. I like the warmth because winter will soon be here. So yeah, so it's been a very busy summer for me, and maybe haven't been in the constituency as much as I would have been before I was appointed minister, just the demand of time. But it's been very productive, and I found it very useful and very interesting. So I'm glad to represent the city and the whole riding. As I go across the province, I've been all over the province and not done touring yet for this summer. So I always tell everybody that Lacombe is the best place in Alberta to live. So in terms of some of the items you have that you want to talk about, do you want to take them in any particular order? Okay, I'll just take them in the order they're presented there then. So the Lacombe Lodge, unfortunately, I probably can't comment very much on that one, simply because I wasn't quite aware that it was going to come up today. I haven't had any communication from them in a while. I've met with them quite a bit in the past. I know that there's been some transitioning and looking at ways to be more efficient in terms of the delivery of services, but I can certainly make some effort to try and find out for you where that one's at, because quite frankly, I don't know at the moment. So see what I can find out for you. In terms of the community support grants, that is stuff that I can talk to you a lot more about. For most of these grants, I mean, of course, you understand that they are designed and tailored for nonprofits and charities. Municipalities are not eligible because you're under the MGA rather than under my department. But the nonprofits and charities in the riding and across the province are totally encouraged to apply. There's a number of different grant streams, I guess. Where should I start here? let me begin. I can't find the spot I want to be. I know I have it here. There we go. So the first one is the Community Initiatives Program. 3 different streams for that. First one is project-based. So basically events, one-time sort of projects that are going to support the community, up to $75,000 for each one of those. 3 intakes per year. Then there's the operating stream, which is intended to just help nonprofits and charities with their operational side. In many cases, it's about enhancing their capacity, training, sometimes equipment, some are staff, the kinds of things that will strengthen their capacity really to deliver their services on an ongoing basis. And again, up to 75,000, 3 intakes a year. And then there's the major cultural and sport events stream, which is up to 250,000, 1 intake per year, and essentially for larger cultural and major sporting events. So the different ones that happen across the province apply for those. And in many cases, we need communities who are willing to sponsor those as well to be parts of that important part of what happens there. And it's one of the things we're actually reviewing. It's always a challenge for communities to take on such a big project. It brings a lot of benefits to communities, but it's a big challenge, and not every community feels like they're capable. In many cases, they're partnering together, multiple communities joining together to provide opportunities and facilities. The most recent one I announced was the upcoming Summer Games for 23, I guess it is, in Grand Prairie. They have an incredible list of facilities and venues to be able to host that, and so they're excited to be able to do that. And yeah, so then the community facility enhancement program is more about providing buildings or spaces. It can be new spaces, it can be old spaces, renewed, renovated, repaired, just to create longer life for those spaces. There's 2 streams for that one. The smallest one is up to 125,000, and 3 intakes per year on that one as well. CFEP large goes from 125,000 up to $1 million, and these grants, particularly the community ones as well, but these ones in particular, hugely oversubscribed, especially now that COVID's over. Everybody wants to get back and get things going and improve their community facilities, and so there's a huge demand for those grants. We are oversubscribed. The grants tend to go to communities that first of all, the nonprofit is healthy and strong. So what that means is that they have all their paperwork together, they have their finances together, they have the charitable status current. Quite often we get grant applications that are just simply incomplete. Their current charitable status or nonprofit status isn't up to date. They haven't filed their paperwork, their reporting. They don't have their portion of the money. These are all matching grants, so they need their 50% of the money. And they need it in actuality, not just in some sort of vague promise down the road. They have to be able to demonstrate that they actually have it in hand. So if they've got their paperwork, they've got their funding ready, and they are actually shovel ready. So in many cases, this means they need some of their engineering, some of their planning, permitting all in place. Because there's such demand for them, we're not often going to hand out grant money to organizations that just simply aren't ready to go. We'll give it to people that are ready and can deal with it immediately. So those are the main pieces there. I should also add that there is also the option for larger grants, larger capital grants, but those once a year. We get applications, we go through them, we try and vet them, make sure they're ready, make sure they're complete, that they're appropriate, that they fit within parameters, and then I have to submit those to Treasury Board and Finance. And Treasury Board and Finance makes those decisions, and they go to the budget planning process for the next year. So much larger grants are possible. but it's a completely different process and a little bit more challenging to happen that way. So I think that covers most of the issue about the grants. All the information is on the webpage, and there's actually some training videos there. And if you've got organizations that are interested in applying for grants, I would really encourage them to also communicate with the staff. The departmental staff are there to help people make sure their grants are appropriate and well filled out. We're in the process of reviewing. I've been asking for several months, and we're well into the process now of reviewing how the grants are processed and how long it takes, because in my mind, it takes far too long to get the grants approved. So as part of our red tape reduction, I've been insisting that the department finds a way to speed up the process and make it more efficient. They are working hard on that, cooperating very well on it, and I think we'll make some good progress on there. So hopefully we'll be able to also deliver those grants in a more timely manner than maybe has happened in past years. I should also say that CFAP, for instance, funding levels for this year is 15.6 million spread out across the province. And I do have the information actually for Lacombe. For this year, the Lacombe Athletic Park Association received a grant for their track and field expansion, and the Lacombe Performing Arts Center Foundation Phase 1 building renovations. In the last 5 years, prior funding to Lacombe Ponoka constituency has been $884,000 to 19 different projects, and to the city $295,000 to 9 different projects. So there's been a fair number here. I've been trying to make sure that we get as many as possible here in our writing, but of course, also has to be fair and equitable to everybody else. So always the challenge. So maybe I'll stop there. Any questions on that one? That's a lot of information to swallow in a hurry, but anything on that subject you want to talk about or discuss?
I guess just one for both for our reference and people watching at home. For those nonprofit organizations that are interested in the community facility grants, is there an online starting place, or should they contact your office directly? What would be the appropriate route to go there?
Yeah, so you can go to, let me see if I got the exact, I have it here somewhere. So communitygrants@gov.ab.ca. It would be the place to start. There's also a phone number. It's 800-642-3855. People could start there as well. We are actually moving to a actual online processing system to try and speed the process up as well. The reality is that is going to challenge people to make sure the grants are properly filled out, because they won't even get past the system if they're not properly filled out. So it's a way for us to filter and work with people to make sure they fill out their grants their applications properly before they even get submitted. And hopefully it'll save some staff time as well. But that's the place to start, communitygrants@gov.ab.ca.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any questions on that particular item?
Okay.
Apparently not.
The next subject you have here is ending sexual violence, something that I think is of great concern to everybody in the province and within our government as well. And again, recently brought to forelight in publicity with what's happened with Hockey Canada. I know that process is being worked through. And we'll continue to watch that. The federal government, with regards to that one, has said that they have put in place a number of conditions or requirements that must be met prior to funding to them being resumed. As a province, we haven't funded them recently, and we'll probably follow the federal lead on that. We'll fund them when they comply with the federal requirements to hopefully deal with it and address it. But in a more general sense, the Alberta government's approach is a commitment to focus on shifting the culture, improving our institutional responses. Many of our grant well, I should actually say sport and culture institutions that we fund. Part of the requirement of them even getting funding is that they have a protocol in place to how to address and manage, respond to, I guess, allegations that come forward and difficulties that arise that way. So it's about improving our institutional response and truthfully supporting our survivors. You may have noticed the recent news on the victims of crime, substantial increase in the amount of money going towards supporting victims, longer terms available for applications and processes. I think the ability to file complaints and speak to the RCMP has now extended to 2 years from before it was a matter of months. So we're funding awareness campaigns to try and support survivors, to break the silence around it, providing education about consent, gender equality, and what healthy relationships really are. So this has included things like the Sexual Violence Awareness Month, begun in 2018, and the government has declared May on a permanent basis as a month for creating awareness and talking about it and hopefully changing the culture. February 6th has been declared the Day of Zero Tolerance for female genital mutilation. 16 days of activism against gender-based violence is held annually from November 25 to December 10th. We support a number of programs also engaging men and boys to promote respectful relationships, positive gender roles and equality. So for instance, between 2020 and 2022, we've provided $398,000 to the, and this is a mouthful, Valuable Opportunities to Inspire Change Through Empowerment Program. The VOICP is, CE is voice for the acronyms. So if you ever hear anybody talk about the VOICE program, this is what we're talking about. I actually sat in on one of the sessions. Very interesting. What it does is it seeks professional athletes and university level athletes to engage and educate them to become ambassadors, actually, to create leadership in this field. So they actually go to high schools and junior and senior high schools to support cultural change, proactively hold conversations to address the whole issue of gender-based violence in terms of attitudes and beliefs and behaviors, particularly as it relates to sport. There's good documentation that there's a higher level than other places of issues that take place in sporting environments. And so these ambassadors actually go to junior and senior high schools and hold sessions and talk about these kinds of things. So we've trained ambassadors from the Edmonton Elks, the Calgary Stampeders, Calgary Hitmen, Calgary Roughnecks, Ottawa Red Blacks, University of Alberta, and University of Calgary. So I think it's a very effective program and something that's growing and spreading in terms of its effectiveness, and just a really unique, positive program to address the cultural values and the beliefs at the very source where it could happen. So working to approve also the social service agencies, healthcare, the law enforcement that goes along with all of that, because that's all extremely important as well. There was in 2021, there was an action plan. Well, there was actually, first of all, I don't know what it was called, a study, a research. Anyway, out of it came the 9-point action plan to combat human trafficking, because this is a key part of what happens in all of this. And of the 19 calls to action that were submitted, 18 of those have been accepted by the government of Alberta and are being worked on. We're also working with Advanced Education through their channels and the universities and others to make sure that again, education, training, cultural change takes place. Advanced Education announced $2.5 million as a grant to post-secondary institutions to support them in upgrading their campus sexual violence policies, develop campus surveys, and run awareness campaigns as well. We're also working with Indigenous Relations in response to the joint working group's final report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and introduced Clare's Law, which is technically the disclosure to protect against domestic violence. It gives women the opportunity to ask for the criminal record of their partners if they have reason to be concerned, and so that they can know what the reality is that they're living with or considering living with. And then, of course, increased support through victims of crime, as we've said. Also, a significant amount of support goes to the sexual assault centers here in Central Alberta. We have the Central Alberta Sexual Assault Support Center in Red Deer and the Association of Communities Against Abuse in Stettler. Both of those two agencies would serve much of Central Alberta. We work with them and are encouraging as much as we can for them to be able to be available and helpful. The way some of this actually may be working because it seems like reporting is increasing a little bit, and as a result, wait times for counseling, in my mind, is too long. It's somewhere between, I think, 6 to 8 months here in Central Alberta. I think it should be like almost immediate, but working on it, and those agencies are definitely committed to trying to shorten that wait time as much as they can. And of course, local residents can also engage with Lacombe Victim Services, and same thing for the rest of the riding. So yeah, I don't know if there's much else I can give you in terms of what we've done there. I'm open to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for being here tonight too, by the way.
Sure.
Minister Orr. I have a question regarding the women in abusive situations. And is the government looking at providing more housing for them to get out of those situations immediately? I know counseling, you just mentioned, it could be up to 6 months in certain circumstances. Is there any action that you're looking at that would help them right away?
Yeah, shelters are extremely important for them to escape from. Again, that isn't directly my department, so I'm not able to give you hard numbers on that. I don't know, but my suspicion is that there's been a lot of work in this area. It's something that we've talked about a lot in general, and I think there is a commitment to try and increase the number of shelter spaces that are available. I do know we work with some of the nonprofits that offer that. Some of them have applied for grants. We've tried to help them out with those. But yeah, that's also a key part of it, and something that I can look into a little bit more detail if you'd like. So.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I do actually have a question for Minister Orr. It's sort of related to grants, but it's different than what you've discussed already. A question which you may not be able to answer today, but perhaps you can find out. About 2 years ago, there was a big announcement in Lacombe, and it was to do with the Technology Innovation Emissions Reduction Fund of $10 million commitment from the Alberta government, and as well from, I think it was Enbridge, for the Biorefinex project. I'm just wondering, because you were talking about how other grants would be for, things that are shovel ready, and the expectation is that would, occur shortly, and that there's a high need for that. So I just mentioning it because it is 2 years ago. I see that on the Alberta website, it says scheduled for 21, 22, we're getting, the year's ticking on. So I was just wondering if you do have any comment on that, or if you want to perhaps follow up with that.
Yeah, that's a fair question. It's and quite honestly, this project has been a lot more than just 2 years. It's been a long time in coming. part of that is the challenge the business faces in new and innovative projects anywhere in our world. The level of regulation, the level of ESG, the level of trying to raise funding, not to mention the difficulties of the science are extremely complex. As I go across the province and I meet these various guys trying to start new businesses, I'm amazed at the perseverance and the endurance and the just downright bulldog requirement it takes to be able to actually launch a new business, which is one of the reasons we've tried to get rid of get the red tape issue addressed and dealt with. You know, we live in a society where we want everything perfect, but it all puts up costs and roadblocks to business. So anyway, specifically with your question for the what's it called again? BioRefineX. I did get a bit of an update from them a few months ago. They have had some challenges with some of their funding. I understand that their funding is in place. They do have marketing of much of their product going. They have major corporate partners that have signed. So I'm not entirely sure what the current holdup is or what challenges they're trying to overcome right now. I do know that they're still working on it, still persevering, trying to get all the pieces together. They did call me and give me a bit of a report that you know, yes, it's coming, but the exact details I don't know, and maybe it's you know, corporate stuff that they're not prepared to share. I'm not sure, but they assure me that they're still on track, that it will still happen, that that they're working at it. So that's about all I can tell you. So.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The construction on the old Juniper site, is that a truck stop from my understanding? And if it is it private sector partnership? And my third question would be, how much is that project?
So the province is building, I think, 9 new rest stops. It's scheduled only to be a rest stop, a place for trucks to park. There will be washrooms there, but it's not going to be a full service business truck stop with fuel and store and all that sort of stuff. It's just intended to be a rest stop, is my understanding. I don't know the exact dollar value of that contract. It is, to my knowledge, P3, so it's contracted out. They seem to be actually, from what I heard originally, a little bit ahead of schedule. At one point I was told, well, the contracts aren't even going to be signed till late summer and they'll start sometimes in the fall. Obviously, they got that resolved and it went ahead sooner because they've been working on it now for a month or more, maybe 6 weeks already. So they've made some good progress on that. The way it's going, I hope they'll be done by late fall, actually. So, but I don't know the dollar value of it.
I may follow up. So I guess obviously we have various different departments, yours, culture, transportation, and so forth, that can directly have a project within our constituency, but yourself as an elected official representing Lacombe Ponoka, could there not be more collaboration to say, all due respect, replacing the lodge that alleviates acute care patients out of our 36-bed hospital, that apparently 40% of them 36 beds are waiting for extended care facility like the lodge, which has a more direct effect on healthcare? Wouldn't that be more of a priority? That wouldn't you as an elected official to say, to review all the different departments where you might say, this is a bigger priority than a truck stop? Like, wouldn't that be a more valuable process to directly affect a higher priority need?
Yeah. So a couple comments there. The truck stop piece is one that has received a lot of public noise, if you want, a lot of lobbying for high priority because of the safety issue on the highway, because of truckers not having a place to pull over and rest, cars not having a place to go to the bathroom. So we've received, and it's been in the media a fair bit too, that you know, we have to have more truck stops for safety purposes, and you know, people stopping at the rest stops and going in the ditch and going to the bathroom. It's a sanitary issue. I mean, you stop at any of those places and there's toilet paper all over the ground. It's definitely received a lot of priority. Now, that's not to say that healthcare and seniors care isn't a top priority also. In terms of community input, you know, I mean, I have spoken up and tried to advance. I've met with the board of the lodge a couple of times. I've talked with their director. We've put forward pieces to try and get that one moved forward. But those challenges are longstanding. They're countrywide. Healthcare at every level actually is well, there was an article today or yesterday in the National Post that it isn't working. And part of the reason it isn't working is Canada is the only country in the world that is absolutely paranoid opposed to any delivery of private healthcare. I mean, even though we do a lot of it, there is this constant fear that somehow the whole system's going to fall apart if we don't find other ways to deliver it. But Europe and most of the countries in Europe all have a blended system. The system is dysfunctional, quite frankly, in my opinion, and much of it honestly stems from the federal government. They have continually tried to overstep their jurisdictional boundaries. They created this healthcare funding thing years ago, but then they really don't want to fund it at the level that it requires. Every premier in the country has tried to force the federal government to address the shortfall in funding that's dispersed to the provinces so that they can solve the solution. So far, there's no response to that. I really lay a lot of it at the feet of the federal government. I don't know what the solution to that is going to be. I don't think anybody in this country knows what the solution to healthcare crisis is, but it's not working. It's dysfunctional. And I mean, I don't know what your political views are, everybody. I don't really care. All I know is what we've got isn't working. The other thing that I would say, that which is a little bit off subject though, but related to priorities and interest from the community, infrastructure does every year ask municipalities for their priorities. Put on that list what's important to you, and they do get pushed forward. Oftentimes they do get addressed. So those priorities are paid attention to, and I always push them forward for you. So.
Thank you for that, Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you, Councillor Ross, for bringing up Lacombe Lodge. I currently sit on the Lacombe Foundation board. I was a little disappointed that you couldn't provide an update tonight, Minister Orr. Respectfully, I would ask if you could try and come up, just give us an update of where we're at with that.
Yeah, that wasn't on the list that was given to me of things to update. If it was, I would have answered. I would have been prepared.
That's fine. If you could come up with something and submit it to the mayor.
Yep.
And I could forward it on to Lacombe Lodge. I'm just going to read you a couple of excerpts from the business plan for Lacombe Foundation for 2023 to 2025. We submitted the feasibility study in 2019, and as such, have not heard anything. The age, condition, and functionality of the Lacombe Lodge does not meet current standards. It's impacting its usage and efficiency, and this is something, this number here kind of not surprised me, but it scares me a little. Lacombe Lodge capital maintenance needs are in excess of $3 million. $3,328,125 over the next 5 years. To be honest, if we had a facility in town that needed that kind of maintenance over the next 5 years, we'd be pushing very hard to replace that. To spend $3 million on maintenance when it should go towards a new facility, I think seems to make much more sense. So Yeah, if you could just find out, that'd be terrific, because as Councillor Ross has alluded to, I think there are things that are much more important than, I get it, there's different branches and monies allocated here and there, but this can't continue to spend that kind of money on maintenance. Is scary, frankly. So we need to really be looking at replacing that lodge sooner rather than later. So any sort of update you can provide would be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. I will. I'll get you an update on it. I'll ask the department and find out where we're at.
Certainly appreciate that, not to beat a horse to death here, but this is a very critical item for our community, as I expect you're already aware, but it is very important. Yes, it does bridge some of the healthcare issues, but seniors care is in definite need in Lacombe. I think 2 years ago, we were informed by ministry then that it was at the top of the list for replacement, which was encouraging. It's in 2 years, though, there's been very little happen. And I just wanted you to be aware of that. So when you are advocating to your colleagues about the importance of this in our area, because I know they get it from every corner of the province.
Yeah, they do.
It is genuine here. And as Councillor Connick said, to have an organization allocate funds of that magnitude towards the maintenance of a facility built not that long after World War II, the initial part of it is extremely poor use of those monies, in my opinion. And I don't know how we can be any clearer with the government that this facility is long overdue. So.
No, I appreciate that. I'll definitely bring that forward. And it's interesting. It's kind of not been anything that I've actually heard much about in the last year. So it's good you bring it back forward on the table. I was kind of actually wondering where it was at and what was happening. So.
No, and certainly appreciate your honesty. Just once again, the need has definitely not disappeared.
Yeah,
as
for
Councillor went through, it has magnified.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
CAO Gowdy.
Thank you. Through the chair. I was wondering if you could confirm a couple of things, Minister Orr. This council has actually written in opposition to the ministry on a couple of occasions, and I believe you were copied on the correspondence, in opposition to the commercial uses that were proposed for the rest area. Even just 6 months ago, that was confirmed in writing that was the purpose. Tonight, you've said there won't be commercial uses, and it is back to the original plan of washrooms and truck stop only. Are you certain that is the case, or is that a possible?
So yes, there was conversation, and I know there was even a request about maybe trying to do something commercially off Highway 12 here. That didn't go anywhere. My understanding is that it's a rest stop, but I will confirm that absolutely for you. I haven't heard that it's any different than any of the other 9 rest stops they're building across the province.
Yeah, I have a letter from the ministry that there's 18 going.
Oh, maybe it is
9 of them
18. I don't
are-
remember the exact number on those. So there's a bunch of them, yeah.
And then you had actually given us a couple of updates on earlier on in your presentation about CFAP approvals that we're giving to the Lacombe Athletic Park Association and the Lacombe Performing Arts Center Foundation for grant approvals. And I was wondering if you could just mention those one more time, because I missed what they were.
Let me just confirm here. Did I say approvals or did I say they've submitted applications? No, they have applications in
Okay.
that will be approved by sometime in December. Savannah, do you know any more details on those 2 grant applications? She's still
I
there?
don't, Minister. We'd have to look into it further.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I see no other lights on. So if you would care to move on to item number 4.
Sure. The last one that I have on the list, I didn't look on the other side. Yep. Is the Creative Partnerships Alberta, the USEED Social Impact Fund. So this is a project that we've done in partnership with the University of Calgary and as well the United Way in Calgary. The reality is that meeting the social needs of our society are challenging. There's no government anywhere that can do it all by themselves. And quite honestly, civil society, people with passion and care, the many, many nonprofits. I mean, there's 26,400 nonprofits in Alberta. They all do very good work, very important work. But the way to fund them is a challenge. The government is committed to continue funding them, but we recognize that government alone is never going to be enough. We need to try and help them build capacity, become more adept, and there's a large interest, especially amongst younger folks who are very ESG, environmental, social governance conscious, seeking to build businesses that enhance community benefit. They're adverse to the idea of building a business that's entirely for profit. They're adverse to the idea of the caricature of the rich guy just trying to get richer all the time. They want to build businesses that are socially responsible. So there's a huge interest in that, but how do you do it? How do you get there? And any business in an effort to get started has to cross what's sometimes called the valley of death. In other words, make the leap from concept to actually being able to fund it and build it and make it happen. That's a huge valley to try and get across. And so how do they do that? Especially if you want to be environmentally and socially responsible, you're not necessarily trying to be in it just to make all the money you possibly can, but you want to benefit the world along the way. So the University of Calgary has been doing research. As a province, we've committed $2 million over 4 years to their USEED Social Impact Fund. It's managed by the university's affiliate, Innovate Calgary. There's also been a donation of $2.5 million from the United Way and some others. And over 5 years, the program intends to support up to 100 socially responsible business ventures with up to $300,000 per venture. And they will tackle some of the pressing and urgent community social issues that face Alberta today in new and innovative kinds of ways. Many of these people have incredible ideas about how to do this, but they need help. They want help. They're looking for help, and that's what the USEED Social Impact Fund is all about. It begins with people in the community who care and see a need and want to try and solve it. And they're very creative, very innovative. They're in many cases very fast moving, much more than government bureaucracy would be. And so we're funding that, a social impact fund to try and support the arts, culture, all of the other parts of the need that people view as being socially beneficial, socially helpful, to make Alberta a better place. So the world's changing. Much of it is technology based. One of the little pieces we've done as well to try and address the changing needs of the world is to through the provincial government create the crowdfunding platform. The provincial government pays for it. Nonprofits can access it for free. They just need to register on the platform, and the intent is that for many funding projects, the application process, the reporting process the months and months it takes to actually get your money, quite frankly, just make it not worth trying to access government funding for that. So on the crowdfunding platform, once they register, they create a project. Then of course they have to promote it, they have to sell it, they have to go to their supporters, their constituency, and encourage them to contribute. But it started out at any project up to $10,000. If they raised 75% of their project goal within 30 days, then we would top up the last 25% to get them over the top, and they get their money in 30 days. Very simple, very quick, very easy, intended for smaller projects. We've actually expanded the scope of it a little bit. The latest numbers I've seen, we've put well over $100,000 into various nonprofits across the province through these small projects. But it's helped them out in a lot of ways. They can use it for a lot of different things. Just one of the little pieces that we've put there. With the University of Calgary, the big part though is mentoring, is training, it's education to help them know how to succeed, how to fundraise, how to be business smart, all the different things they have to learn in order to manage themselves well. So that's really what it's all about. It's about creating socially responsible businesses in Alberta that will address social issues in a way that maybe government can't do.
Thank you very much for that. Certainly nothing wrong with businesses wanting to be socially responsible. However, it is a little ironic that companies that are not lean towards profit start through the grant system with government funds. It just seems a little ironic to me.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different, but the majority of these through the USEED project are meant to be really socially beneficial in terms of the actual work that they do. It's not just that they want to be a business and do a little bit of socially responsible stuff on the side. Their actual work is meant to resolve significant social issues. So that is what they do for their job. Yeah.
No, that's
So,
fair.
yeah.
Thank you.
So,
do we have any additional questions or comments for Minister Orr? Well, we certainly do appreciate you making time in your schedule to come and speak to us this evening. And thank you for wearing the city coat of arms as well.
and I will confirm for you the truck stop, and definitely try and get a report back to you on the long-term care center. So
that would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
I can find you on that. So yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the work you guys are doing. It's been a challenge for everybody the last few years. We're still not out of it, I don't think, in the sense that all of the consequences and the putting things back together is not done by any stretch of the imagination. So there's lots of work to do yet. So
thank you for acknowledging that. Council knows full well the amount of effort that you put in, the number of events that you attend here in our area, and I know that works across the province for you. So it's we appreciate the work that you do advocating on behalf of Albertans in general, especially those that live in Lacombe. So
yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
So given that we have no hearings this evening, we're going to move down to requests for decision. And the first one up, item 6.1, being presented by CAO Gowdy for recycling services and a request for expression of interest results. Floor is yours, Chief Gowdy.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. On June 1st, 2022, administration released a request for expressions of interest for recycling services. This included both pickup and collection at the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot, as well as rough pricing, preliminary pricing for a curbside collection program. So the first step was to look at proponents and make sure they were able to provide the service and qualified to provide the service. So proponents who scored 60 out of a possible 100 points could be, with council's direction, invited to provide firm pricing bids for curbside recycling services, pick up from material from the depot, or both, with council's direction. So overall, proponents indicated that the current recycling market for cardboard and paper products is strong. Plastics number 1, number 2, and number 5 are also currently in demand in the wholesale market. And they suggested expanding the city's current recycling accepted materials at the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot to include number 5 plastics. It's likely that this would result in a slight increase to the city's costs for recycling because of the additional weight that would be collected both of number 5 plastics and various others that people thought might be number 5 plastics. The preliminary 2023 pricing for curbside recycling services, so curbside collection, is between $3.51 and $6.35. Part of the reason for the large range is the way in which the collection bins themselves have been capitalized in the various proposals or pre-proposals from the respondents. Some of them ranging from including them for free, $0 upfront, and recovering them through the rates, and then some of them with an upfront requirement of up to $420,000 from the city. This results in a 5-year cost of between $1.5 million and $2.3 million, or $300,000 to $450,000 per year on average. Preliminary pricing for the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot ranges from $100,000 to $345,000. Again, should you choose to include it, we would look at the cost to estimate some costs for exploring number 5 plastics as well. So we've got 3 recommendations ultimately in the presentation. The first is that we, administration, would look further at the acceptance of number 5 plastics at the depot and return with any budgetary implications with bids that you may direct us to get, which is our second recommendation, to secure firm quotes for a 3-year contract with an option for 2-year extension for services at the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot. And number 3, reconsider reintroducing curbside recycling collection in 2025 if the province hasn't taken action on the somewhat recently announced extended producer responsibility legislation that they're introducing. So on that note, the extended producer responsibility system is in place in many provinces and jurisdictions in Canada. And essentially, it is a government collection of a fee associated with the disposal of packaging and various potentially recyclable materials associated with retail products. Those funds are collected and used to fund recycling and diversion programs in those other provinces and jurisdictions. And the province of Alberta has recently announced a commitment to bring a similar program here to Alberta. We don't actually know what that looks like. It could range from anywhere in British Columbia. Recycling BC actually provides direct services to some municipalities. And in some instances, funds are transferred to the municipality to run that service themselves. In other jurisdictions, that it's simply a grant distributed to municipalities collected by the provincial government. There's some jurisdictions where it is collected by the provincial government and then it's simply mandated. And so there isn't a direct line. So until that comes out here in Alberta, we really don't know what that looks like. It's very likely that there would be a significant disruption to the private service industry at that time. And so to go out and start down this road now, when it could be as little as 1 to 3 years until there's significant industry disruption, it doesn't seem like a good use of your time. However, of course, we do have the information and we can move ahead with council's direction in getting firm quotes. However, we have not recommended that. Ultimately, our 3 recommendations are to look at the cost of expanding the list to include number 5 plastics in 2023, and get firm pricing for a 3+2 year contract for recycling and processing services at the Wolf Creek Recycling Depot. Bring those back to council, and that you would look at whether to move ahead with that at a future meeting. Separately, we would say in 2025, if the province hasn't implemented its extended producer responsibility legislation, we would bring something back to you to look at the service at that time.
Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. So first of all, thank you for including a question or asking people to, or companies to respond to comments on the state of recycling and the end use of materials. But when I read through the comments that you included in the package, I still am not really satisfied that companies can say they know where what the end use of their product is or what they're picking up from us. And that is my number one concern. Having said that, recycling is almost the only thing that I get stopped on the street for in the grocery store. Someone wants to talk to me about recycling. Maybe they know my views on recycling. I don't know. But I really feel strongly that we need that answered when we go forward with this. So if we're just creating a second stream of garbage collection, I have issues with that when we're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. So does administration feel like that question was answered? What's happening to the end use? Like, what is the end use of the material?
We haven't audited the company's end use streams. I think there is some market viability demonstrated by them bidding on and collecting this material. However, whether that's viability propped up by grants or it could be any number, we haven't looked at that, and we haven't looked at does the material get collected truly see reuse. That's never been audited at this time.
So for clarity, Chief Gotti, then the companies that were checked with here are collection companies. They're not utilizing the products themselves. They're collecting them and then reselling them. Is that the general idea?
Yes, I'm not aware of any in-house reuse of the materials, although I have to admit I'm not completely familiar with all of the 10 submissions that were received or whatever the number is. Unfortunately, Director Thompson couldn't be here this evening, but I can find that out if you would like further. To my knowledge, I'm not aware of any in-house demand for reuse of recyclable materials.
Thank you. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I will completely concur with Councillor Hoekstra because having spent a significant time at times with the recycling station for the purpose of truck and water, there are drivers that openly say there's a significant percentage that ends up straight back at the Prentice landfill. I would rather have more confidence in biomass technology that has zero emissions to utilize our cardboard and our paper that's even at their site to heat major, like our, for example, our public works or our major facilities that would reduction of utilities. We know would have a end use. So I think there is a good percentage. All due respect to the company that would give us quotes, it's a significant business to them of our Wolf Creek Recycling, which I think our numbers would not be honest. I guess my apologies, but I completely concur with Councillor Hoekstra. I'm just not totally convinced that recycling is true recycling, that we're not creating another stream. But yet, I think we also have a due diligence to our citizens to have the numbers for them and costs.
Thank you. Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm also concerned with those issues. Certainly recycling, especially plastic recycling, has been poor in the last number of years. And certainly there's been a misconception that all the plastic is being recycled. It's not true. But there was a proposal for special bins around you know if anything's happened with that? I'll maybe direct that to the mayor. Was that going to come to us or did it just go to the other locations within the county? Those special bins for plastic directly to a person that was going to recycle them.
Correct. Thank you for that question. So that was through the Lacombe Regional Waste Services Commission. And I actually spoke with the manager coincidentally just today and brought up that very thing. And those collection sites have been distributed. They're still missing 2 of the satellite sites. They are available at the main site at Prentice. I guess on the positive news, there is a small amount of plastics that's being utilized by a company in Red Deer, and I forgive me if I give the company name wrong. It's TerraCore perhaps, or something, a company anyway that is utilizing to make a building sheet product. And I hope that it has promise. So about all I can say, that it's still in its infancy, but they have been working closely with management at the Regional Waste Services Commission as a company that is also working towards more of a use of that carbon-based material that Councillor Ross was speaking of.
Can I follow up a little bit on that?
Certainly.
But hopefully we're on the list to get one of those bins at the recycle depot. And some of the concerns that were addressed in here about, you know, contamination and so on, I think we have to be more aggressive on our signage. Like maybe a big sign as they come in with a cross across plastic bags, no bags. Because if it's in a bag, as you know, most people here know, if it's inside a bag, it will not be recycled. And every time I look in that bin, unfortunately, there's bags full of recycling that people put their tin cans in, as Councillor Hoekstra used to do, in a bag, all washed out, and not one of those cans will be recycled. It's really sad when you see people do that much work and not rewarded and trying to do the right thing. So I hope we get one of the bins that'll directly go to a manufacturer and work towards that, where we can get more of our recyclables directly towards people that are going to use them. I mean, the current system is flawed, but it is what it is. And if we get better, hopefully we can recycle more.
Fair comment, Councillor Gullickson. I will certainly speak with the manager at Regional Waste and see if that is a possibility. My expectation that that bin would probably not come from the Regional Waste Services, as that is not really within their program currently. However, if there is sufficient material available, I expect the company may be interested in putting a collection spot in, which may be financially in our best interest to do it that way anyway. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I do want to suggest, though, as I said, this is still in its infancy, so I don't know that necessarily the supply of material is necessarily the bottleneck of the operation just yet, is the most polite way that I can put that. Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Chrissy. I too agree with the motions that have been presented here by administration. I think we need to stay the course for now. I diligent recycle. I loved it when we had curbside, but until we can be assured, as Councillor Hoekstra has alluded to, that that product is actually being recycled, I still have my reservations. And as Councillor Ross had alluded to, there are companies that are on the cusp, hopefully within the next few years, of maybe presenting a different solution. And again, I would agree that the provincial government needs to come up with something with the EPR, hopefully in the next little while. So until that time, I think I know it's not what anybody wants, but I think we just need to stay the course for now, and hopefully in the next few years, something else will present itself.
Thanks, everyone. So given that, the comments have been similar here, I think that we do, because it is on our agenda, we at least owe it to administration to put forth some sort of a motion, whether it's just to accept as information or whatever, but something to consider as we continue on with our comments here. And next up is Councillor Dallas. I think your microphone is perhaps off.
Thank you. It's working now. You can hear me?
Very good.
Great. Thank you. So I guess my biggest concern is that I am not satisfied with the Wolf Creek Recycling Depot. We have confirmation that the majority of items going in there are being recycled as is, or is we are just under the same assumption that if things were being picked up by truck, that they possibly are not being recycled as well. I'm just wondering if we can answer that quickly for me. And then I think I'm not satisfied with the Wolf Creek recycling depot the way it sits. It's not something that I would be proud of to say that we are operating or that we're having someone operate for us. And so in that sense, based on the costs, I wouldn't be encouraged to continue operating that facility as it is. So if we are going to pass this motion to continue on for 3 additional years, I think we do need to make changes on that facility. That's all I have for that.
Thank you, Councillor Dallas. I think your sentiment is widespread throughout the community. I don't think that the state of recycling is anywhere near what most people would prefer. However, to expect administration to guarantee whether or not the items that are being collected from those companies are in fact being recycled, I think is unrealistic. However, you did pose the question, so I will direct it to Chief Gowdy and let him answer it how he chooses.
I mean, I guess all we have is the assertions of the contract provider. I don't think I saw anything in there where they have said 100% of those materials are getting recycled. However, that's something we could look further into when we return with firm quotes if council wanted. We could certainly look at maybe a way we could have a little more reassurance. I don't know that you'll ever get certainty, but I think you could get some reassurance that they have contracts in place and there is certain volumes being turned into product, that sort of thing. And we could look at what might provide council a reasonable level of assurance if that's something you would like.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I actually would echo Councillor Dallas in my dissatisfaction with the concept that we would continue with Wolf Creek Recycle Depot. And I would also echo what you have said yourself, Mayor Creasy, just now about how our residents are asking for us to take recycling a different place. I think overwhelming majority of conversations that I have with people still cannot understand that while we do recycling, we do it so poorly. And part of that is because of the facility that we run. So either we resolve that as Councillor Dallas has referred to, or I think better yet is reintroduce curbside. Does that come with a price sticker? Yes, it does. But in fact, that is what I believe the majority of residents want. They want to recycle, but they don't want, what Wolf Creek looks like on a very regular basis. If you do use that facility, you know that it's a disaster. There's no accountability on either the users or, for that matter, the company providing the service. The fact that there are that many concerns about whether things are being recycled or not just goes to show if you go there on a regular basis, you see examples of misuse and contamination regularly. There's no required, like there's no accountability even on users. Like they can just shove what they want wherever, come and go at whatever time they want. At least if it was curbside, it's in front of your house and you are somewhat responsible for it. It's also convenient so that people are actually going to use the program. There's benefits for diverting this material out of the landfill, which is what our landfill wants, even though they're not unfortunately weighing the amount of product that we're bringing to them. But I guess I just want to reiterate what I hear all the time on this subject is how is it that Lacombe does not have curbside recycling when everywhere else does? I think that part of the reason why we had said no to curbside, to the renewal of the contract at the time, was there was such a like a fluctuation in the recycling market. And I mean, I've heard this over and over again that, for example, these plastics, exactly as the reintroduction of Plastics 5 would indicate, that there has been some stability, at least in some of the product. So I don't know why we would even wait for the province to maybe do something with EPR at a later date. And should they decide to do so, then we'll make adjustments to our program at that time. There'll be many municipalities that have contracts for curbside that they may have to alter or whatever the case may be. And we'll just be one more municipality with the same situation as everybody else. I'm just disappointed that we would even think that curbside should just get pushed back. I want details. I want like actual bids so that I can compare what is the best outcome for our community, whether it's the depot or curbside, certainly not both. And I guess that's just my 2 cents.
Appreciate that, Councillor Hibbs. So obviously a big issue here that we have before us, and certainly some differences of opinion. When you said we are very poor at recycling, I'm assuming you meant Canadians in general, or are you specifically talking about, were you specifically talking about the city of Lacombe?
Now that you mention it, I would probably agree that that would be both true, but I was actually intending to say that the city.
Okay, appreciate that, because I seem to recall that the most troublesome portion when we considered the last contract renewal was the realization that there is precious little being done with the materials that are being collected, whether it be properly or not. Once again, I, as much as anybody, would love to wave a magic wand and suggest that there is a viable use for all of these products, but I don't know that putting in extra effort and extra dollars at this particular point in time to collect those items is going to reduce the impact that those items have on our environment, our landfills, or anything else. So I just want to reiterate the fact that there is still a huge disconnect with the vast majority of people that I talk to, and like Councillor Hibbs, it is a subject on many, many people's minds. But the vast majority still seem to not be clear on the substantial differences between recycling and collection. And collection of waste does not utilize it nor make it disappear. And that is just something I wanted to make sure that we keep forefront. Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to dispute the fact that saying that our recycle depot is not working well. I think the number, and maybe administration can back me up on this or give me the proper number. I think it's around 70% is being recycled that goes there, if I remember correctly, from waste management. We have a very high percentage of the materials going into our facility that are able to be used. Much better than curbside recycling, where there is no nobody watching. You say somebody's watching your house, they can put anything they want in that bin, and who cares? And I think that program has to be reviewed for curbside. And I'll give you an example. In Regina, I went on a tour, and they told us they were very excited about it. 11% of their people that had curbside recycling did the right thing. Only 11%. So 90% almost of the people did the wrong thing in their curbside recycling, which caused a lot of contamination and ended up in the landfill. So I think that our program right now is probably the most efficient as far as recycling goes. Is it good? No, I agree with you there. I don't like the looks of it. I don't like what goes in there a lot of times, but as far as recycling, it's probably one of the most efficient ways to get things that are actually going to be reused and recycled. So I dispute your facts on that.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think we have a consensus of, it's always debate of streamlining. At the recycling depot, a lot of people don't know the cost and the difference of the tonnage from commercial to recycling. And we cannot always monitor the abuse. It's our responsibility is to be responsible for our tax dollars, the cost of delivery of the services with the least amount of scrutiny and the least amount of abuse. And there's always going to be abuse. So whether it's a couple public works employees cleaning up the public works site for a couple hours and every Monday and Monday morning, it's far less expensive than manning it 14 or 16 hours a day. So I would like to go ahead and make the motions that council give to administration direction that the first recommended motion is that council directs administration to evaluate the cost of expanding the list of eligible materials accepted at Wolf Creek Recycling Depot to include number 5 plastics starting in 2023. I would also, and then for that motion, I think we went over last fall in a strategic plan that we all were pretty much unanimous to move forward with bringing information back to our citizens to what's viable, what's not. And this first one of the 3 recommended motions gives administration the direction to bring it back to council. So I'd like to go forward with recommendation number 1.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I just wanted to clarify that when I speak with citizens, I have yet to come across a citizen that's concerned about where the product is going. They are all concerned about the collection process, and they just want to recycle. And so when I have that conversation, that do they know where the product goes, and do they have a clear idea where they go? Most do not. And the number one thing is I say, how many products do you personally buy that are made of recycled products? And virtually no one can name anything they purchase. And so nothing, however they're using this recycled goods, we're not seeing it as consumers. And so how can it be economically viable? So I just wanted to confirm that they are not, they want to recycle, but they really are not informed. And so I think we have an opportunity here as a city to continue to try to emphasize reduce. When I was in Quebec City was when our contract changed. And so a lot of people asked us about why would Lacombe stop doing curbside? And then I started asking municipalities, do you know where your products go? And I never found one person who genuinely knew. They just wanted to offer the service because their citizens want it. And I think no, we should just be more, we should use this opportunity to educate.
Thank you. Councillor Dallas. Microphone, please.
Mic to turn on.
There you
Okay,
go.
it's on. Thank you. So I guess just to follow up to my first question there a few minutes ago, my intent on this is if we're not getting guarantees that our product at the Wolf Creek is being disposed of properly and being recycled, why not give the citizens what they've been asking for and provide the curbside recycling product? There's no guarantee that it's going to be any more, products are going to be recycled any more than they're happening at the Wolf Creek, but we're giving the people what they want. And based on the costs that were provided in this, it seems like some of them could be almost equivalent to what we are currently paying for the Wolf Creek facility, not including number 5s at this time. So that's where I stand on this. I just want to make that clear so everyone hears that, and that I'm fine with that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I just have I guess, a procedural question. So the motion that's on the floor currently is asking us to add number 5 plastic starting in 2023. The proposed second motion is referring to a contract that would be beginning in 2023. So, I mean, forgive me if I'm getting confused, but it sounds like I'm being asked to approve something to occur at a site that may or may not be operational, because we haven't actually passed a motion to say that there'd be a contract. But maybe I'm misreading this, because it seems to me like it's saying the second motion given is saying that we would have a new contract to run the depot. Is that how I'm reading that, or am I mistaken?
So just to reread it here, I think we'll find that this is not to suggest that number 5 plastics will in fact be accepted. This is to evaluate the cost of expanding the list of eligible items. So it reads that council directs administration to evaluate the cost of expanding the list of eligible materials accepted at the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot to include number 5 plastic starting in 2023. So this is to bring forward a cost associated, not to in fact go through with it. Chief Gowdy?
Yeah, I think the cleanest way would have been to reverse number 1 and number 2. It wasn't that way. So it's, I guess if, since number 1 is on the floor, if it is included and then council says, but no, no option for extension, then we'll just put that on the shelf and say, okay, if at any point in the future we do consider that, we will or will not include number 5s as part of that if it goes ahead. So.
Councilor Ross?
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Creasy. So do you want me to reverse that, make number 2 first, or to make it easier, or since I made the initial first motion? Are we okay with the first one still? So we can continue move forward?
I see no reason why we can't continue forward with the way that it is. Up to you, though. It's your motion. Any other questions or comments? Anyone need the motion before us read back? Or are we good? Everyone seems to be good. So I will call the question. Then all those in favor? And those opposed? 2 opposed, and I'm sorry, 3 opposed rather. Dallas Hoekstra Creasy, and that is passed by 4-3. Thank you. All right, everybody. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm prepared to make the second motion. The council directs administration to secure firm quotes for a 3-year contract with an option 2-year extension for recycling collection and processing service at the Wolf Creek Recycling Depot starting in 2023.
Thank you. And so Chief Gowdy, are we to assume then that the current contract becomes due at 2023? That's the reason for this?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I have a couple of questions. If we did end up during this contract, go to curbside for some of the recycling, would there still be cardboard recycling at the depot? Because I understand there's not a large availability of cardboard recycling through curbside.
I think that's a fair assessment, given the volume and size of the cardboard that's given, that they're not going to, certainly not going to fit into the vast majority of curbside receptacles for sure. I'm not sure how that would all pan out, but once again, this is kind of a difficult decision, given that we're at a bit of a crossroads with the program at the regional facility that will hopefully utilize cardboard and other organic type items. So I'm just, I know everyone is tired of putting this off, but unfortunately it does take a lot of time. I'm just wondering if we're not being premature in securing this at this point until we can perhaps have a better handle on the expected start date of the composting facility at the regional system. Something to consider anyway.
Can I,
Councillor Gullickson?
thank you, Mayor Creasy. Can I speak to that?
Certainly.
So at that point, if we're into that, where we're actually recycling our own cardboard, would we have our own collection like we do with our bins around town right now? We have cardboard bins in different locations and we collect that and take it to different locations. Would we recycle all of our own cardboard and know that that's where it's going at that point? I'm just thinking it might be a totally different thing, right?
Well, and therein lies a question. I would expect that if we did have a viable alternative that theoretically should be substantially less expensive and know that there is a genuine end use of any recyclable product within our county borders, I would find it pretty hard to believe that we would not make use of it. And although it has been working towards that end for a period of time now, I'm going to say 16 months or so. The facility is not built yet. The input that we've had at the regional waste level has been positive, but it's not built yet. So I guess it's hard to get tied into a 5-year contract for that service and pay for that, and then within that time period have a viable alternative come to fruition and not be able to make use of it because we're tied into a long-term contract. So that presents some difficulties in my opinion. Whether or not a shorter term might be considered, or whether there's any big rush for this anyway, I don't know. That's for council to decide, but that's just where it's at right now with the regional waste services. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think all these motions are really the direction to give administration and bring back further details for us to make hopefully better, more informed decisions. It's not anything definitive, yay or nay. Everything can be, this is for information for the betterment of making decisions later. And if options come forward, or we have exit clauses based upon our cardboard collection for biomass heating that's zero emissions, then that's an opportunity. I guess that's my interpretation of these, just for us to have further information to make more informed decisions.
Thank you. Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. When is our current contract?
So I was going to say earlier, I'm not actually 100% sure that it is a contract end that's looming where service will be withdrawn or something. I think that the guaranteed pricing we had in place, which was for a 3-year period, will come to an end. And so you could face price increases over time. I'm not sure if that's January 1st or if it's mid-year. I'm sorry, I don't have that information this evening with me. I can find out, but I know you would be able to continue providing service. They're not going to withdraw service. There just might be an incremental cost increase while you're without contract.
Go ahead.
Okay, now I mean, it's further to Councillor Ross's. I think the way I read, maybe I'm reading it wrong. The way I read this motion is that we're just securing quotes. We're not agreeing to anything. Am I correct? We're just securing quotes as to what that would look like for a 3+2, correct? And then it would come back to council.
Yes. So I have more information, I guess, that I am privy to than council is fully aware, where we have been looking at utility rate models. And so I think there might be an opportunity in the future to redistribute some of the costs that have been placed on commercial and industrial users that actually subsidize residential rates with the adoption of a new model. That would potentially open you up to look at some of these, whether it's curbside collection or continuation of the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot, while remaining competitive with other municipalities' residential solid waste rates that do offer those full suite of services. So we have reviewed the model and are going to be bringing something for council to look at this fall. And so at that time or after that time, we would bring these options that you see here. But yes, to answer your question simply, I guess, yes, this is a direction to bring something back for you to make a decision with. This is not direction to say, go get a 3-year contract with an option for 2-year extension.
So given the information that you hope to have for council's consideration in the fall, are these other motions even worthwhile considering at this time then?
I think they still are. We talked about the same thing. The timing of the 2 items just didn't quite work out how we had wanted. And so when we had gone to industry with this request for expressions of interest, we did want to bring that back to council so that you have the information. It has taken a little bit longer to work through the utility rate model. It is very complex, but the end is in sight there. I still think it's worth looking at these, and we would bring that information back after, if you're interested in curbside recycling or the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot.
With the curbside collection. Coordinator Bellabono, could you restate the motion that we have before us?
Yes, Mayor Creasy, the motion on the floor is that council directs administration to secure firm quotes for a 3-year contract with an option 2-year extension for recycling collection and processing services at the Wolf Creek Recycling Depot starting in 2023. By Councillor Koenig.
Thank you very much. So any additional comments or questions? So I guess for me, the only reason I can't support it is just, it's not because I'm against recycling. I just think that it's kind of a little early to be, given where we're at with so many irons in the fire and things are kind of in the air. This doesn't really help us at this particular time. And I'm fine with waiting for the additional information in the fall. That's just my perspective, but I see no other lights on, so we do have a motion before us, and I will call the question. All those in favor? It is, and those opposed? That is defeated 4-3. And if I could name the votes for and against, I would do so. Ms. Bellabono, but that's for you to record for a later date. Are there any additional items? Seeing none, we will move on then to item 6.2. Senior Manager McKinnon, could you go through the waiver requests for the property tax penalties, please?
Certainly. Good evening, Mayor Creasy and Council. Tonight, I'm here to present requests from 3 separate property owners to cancel their late penalty fees. Attached to this report is a letter from property owner 1 requesting a penalty of $519.36 to be reversed. An email from property owner 2 requesting a penalty of $308.84 to be reversed. and an email from property owner 3 requesting a penalty of $342.16 to be reversed. The reasons for their requests are attached and are consistent with others who have also received late penalty fees. Tax notices were mailed to property owners on May 25th, 2022. The due date for payment was June 30th, 2022, or a 10% penalty would be applicable. Administration has imposed the penalty as per the tax penalty and payment bylaw 379. As of today, the city of Lacombe has 226 outstanding property tax accounts equal to $799,000 in municipal taxes, education and Lacombe Foundation fees. This represents about 4% of the total levy for 2022, which historically, this is in line with where we are previous years. The total penalties applied for the current year on July 1st was $100,000, $101,535. The cost of the cancellation of late penalties would reduce the penalty and NSF revenue by $1,170.36. Approving the cancellations would set a precedent for future requests of a similar nature. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just for clarification, I read the attachments, obviously, from each of the property owners. Just for clarification, were any of the cases related to the city making an error?
I believe not.
Thank you.
Hey, Mary Chrissy. These ones are always tough, whether it's tax or water bills and they all make very eloquent cases as to why they shouldn't. And they all accept responsibility. So in a way, I'm like, yeah, okay. We should meet their requests. But I get it. It's a slippery slope. I guess my only thing is I would encourage everyone to do the monthly if they can do it. That's what I do. It's great. I don't have to save up 3, 4, 5 grand in one lump sum. So I would encourage people to do that. Is there a way, CO Gowdy? I mean, I know it costs money. Is there a way that we could send out something at the end of April already saying, hey, guess what? In 1 month's time, you're going to get your tax bill. And then so we're giving them 2 months notice as opposed to 1 month's notice, maybe? I don't know. I'm just trying to see if that'll help.
We have looked before about trying to provide more advance notice. Of course, you can send a round of letters, but I think at a point it becomes white noise to say, hey, watch for the notice that your tax bill is going to be coming in the mail. And then the next one comes and says, hey, soon the real tax bill is going to come. Like in this instance, when I look at the rationale behind the late payments, it wasn't a lack of preemptive notification. I believe one was a property transfer, one was an erroneous check use, and one was just new to Lacombe. We can, of course, maybe what we could do is return with our tax. When we put out the tax notice, the mill rate for council to adopt the tax rate bylaw, we'll make sure to include in there exactly what the notification process is. And that way council will have a good, because I'm just going off the top of my head right now. You'll know exactly what the notification is and you can say, how about an extra one April 1st that says for the tax bill or whatever that may be. Would that satisfy? If I said for sure there will be a option to look at that?
I don't know, something, or even if we mail out the tax notice even a couple weeks earlier, mid-May, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. We're gonna have people every year. As you mentioned, there's 800,000 in arrears already, but
So
I-
the
Go ahead.
where it becomes difficult is that you don't actually adopt a tax rate bylaw until April. And so until that tax rate bylaw is adopted, we can't send now. could send something that says, hey, council's got taxes on their mind, so should you. You're thinking about it right now. But it wouldn't have any of the real information until, like right now, I know typically I go to Mark, our staff, and say the day before the council meeting, whether or not he can start printing preemptively to get them out as fast as we can. And if I think they might change, I actually say, well, hold off. And then he's got to come in the next. So I know that part is as fine as it gets, but there, of course, we can send another notification of some kind.
Senior Manager McKinnon, I was just curious, do we have any data of what it's been for the last several years? Are we, I don't want to say on target, it's never a target to assess late penalty fees, but are we following on course for an
A little
average?
bit less this year, actually. And of course, 2019 was an anomaly, but 2020 we're better than 2020, or 2020 was the delay to December, so there's no penalty. But yeah, we're just along the same lines as we've always been, and we collect pretty high compared to other municipalities. So
Great. I guess I'm thankful that it is, you said just under 4%, something which is good. We'd all like it to be zero. Unfortunately, however, there's always going to be a few that kind of fall in between the cracks for a variety of reasons. Some of them quite logical, and like some of them have happened here. However, that doesn't change the fact that 96% of the people do pay their bills on time and correctly. And I'm not sure that by getting rid of these extra fees that we are necessarily treating the majority right either. It's unfortunate for these few. I get it. Property taxes are not something new or unique to Lacombe. I suppose there could be a first home owner that could fall into this category. However, I don't see that here. And I think that's actually rarely the case, because they are probably more apt to know the severe consequences of it. So yeah, as much as I feel for these people, I certainly can't endorse returning these late fee assessments. Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would absolutely echo those sentiments, and therefore I would move that council decline the request to reverse the late penalties.
Thank you. Anything further from anyone? All those in favor? Those opposed? So noted. Thank you, Councillor Connick.
Mayor Creasy, just for my own clarification,
Certainly.
I think we've gotten, well, I don't know. Wasn't it once upon a time that motions had to be in the positive? I guess they don't have to, but I know at one time we tried to do
I'm sorry, a motion of what?
that they had to be in the positive, as in, so in fact, this motion would say we'd approve it, and then you either defeat it, then you would defeat it that way, but I guess that's not the case, is it?
No.
No, that was just a misconception. That actually it's not a requirement.
All right. You're still on Senior Manager McKinnon, Q2 financials, please.
certainly. So tonight, we talk about the second quarter variance report for 2022. The timeline of the report is from January to June 2022. So overall, during this period, revenues are higher than budget for the first two quarters. Franchise fees are higher, 106,000, mostly because of higher consumption in the winter months. Goods and services revenues are also higher than budget due to security clearances and a positive revenue at the Aquatic Center. Interest and penalties are lower than budget, largely due to the timing of the tax rate penalty not occurring until July 1st. And permits, fines, and licenses are under budget by 56,000, as provincial fines are lower than we have budgeted. Overall expenses are 884,000, or 11.17% under budget. Water purchases from the city of Red Deer, wastewater collection fees are under by about 300,000 as of the end of June. And this is often a timing differences because they're reduced during the water fees, and wastewater fees will go up in June during the summer months when more water is used. Goods and services is 300,000, or 9% under budget for the second quarter. The largest variance here being professional services are under budget by 167,000. Also, supplies are lower than budget. And we anticipate decreasing this variance as time goes on through the year. Personnel variances are 396,000 or 4.91% under budget, and that can be mostly explained by position vacancies and extended sick leaves. The net year-to-date surplus is 891,000, and the next variance report of January to September 2022 will happen in November. I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you for that report. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll make the motion that council accepts the 2022 Q2 operating variance report as information.
Thank you. Questions or concerns from anyone? That report was so thorough, there's not a single question for you. I will call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And the next item up, 6.4, our notice of motion from Councillor Gullickson from our last meeting on August 15th. That council reconsider motion number 31, 621.04.22, MO passed April 25th, 2022, regarding that council direct administration to tender the Public Works Facility project as design build. And I don't see who is heading up this item, so I would pass the opportunity to the mover, Councillor Gullickson, to initiate.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Do I have to read the motion again, or is that acceptable? Okay, thank you very much. This motion, and as I understand it from speaking to administration, it will not affect the current process that we're working on towards our design build, but give us an opportunity to look at other options that may or may not be more economical or more feasible than the design build itself. Certainly the design build could still be the best option, but this gives us the ability to look at other things to make an informed decision for our citizens.
Thank you. Chief Gotti, did you want an opportunity to go through process or anything on this item? If so, I think it would be appropriate to begin with that.
Yes, sorry, I thought I had lit up for that very reason. Okay. I did want to just talk process a little bit. So your procedural bylaw talks about reconsideration of motions, and because it is costly and effortful to change track once you've selected a course of action, the procedural bylaw has, to my knowledge, always that I've been here with the city, included a requirement for, you might call it a supermajority, to reconsider a motion that has already been passed, to take you off of the track that you're already on. And so I do just want council to know the track that you are currently on for Public Works. And as Councillor Gullickson has stated correctly, that should this motion pass, you would potentially, you could decide to either continue down this track while you explore other avenues, or you could come right off the track and pause that train, if you will, while you explore these other options. The exploration could result in reintroducing or reconfirming the existing process and continuing on. It could look at modifying your current site or buying new buildings or new sites or developing elsewhere. Anything under the sun becomes an option at that point. So the current track that you're on with the Public Works building, the update since you most recently reviewed it, is that we created a procurement plan internally that broke the project into 5 different phases. And we did that for a few reasons. One, we wanted to get the sort of easy to work or easy to complete work out the door as soon as we could, that being site grading and some site servicing. So that process has closed, and we are waiting to potentially award. We wanted to wait. Normally, we would have awarded already. It did close 2 weeks ago or so. We wanted to wait to see what happens here this evening and get some certainty on that. The second phase of the project that we have also awarded is the development of the design considerations. So we're working with Colliers to put together the design build package that will go out for the main building and the immediate site therein, there around. Following that, we look at 2 different tenders, design build contracts, procurement activities for the 2 separate buildings that are outside of the main footprint. So those being a heated pole shed for equipment and then a salt storage facility for the road salt, obviously. And then the 5th is for paving of the remaining site. And so we've done that for a few reasons. Want to get the work out the door quickly. Number 2, it lets us control cost. Once we have gotten that big piece of work, the main building and the site, the immediate site, we can increase or decrease the extent of paving, the materials used for those outbuildings, the standards used in those outbuildings, depending on where we're at within the budget. So it provides some flexibility as we move through. So as it stands right now, council's direction to tender this as a design build. We are quite a ways down that road. And really this is a non-issue. It's as far from council's perspective, the public works question, if you will, has been answered. Once it's in budget, administration, as per your purchasing policy, if those projects come within budget, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure they do, we just award those projects. We use the procurement standards that you've adopted through your purchasing policy. If it's over $5 million, we inform you. $1 million. We inform you through the CAO report of that purchase, but there is no actual further purchasing approval from council. So you've passed the borrowing bylaw, you've allocated the 10.65 million. So really the next involvement, as I said to the mayor, would really be probably a mid-build tour where we would give you all hard hats and come out to the site and tour you around. So that is the current track you're on. As I said, the requirement under the procedural bylaws for a supermajority or 5 of 7 councillors to actually vote to reconsider. If that happens, then administratively, I'm going to request, okay, do you want this other thing to continue on, or do you want me to stop everything over here while we explore other options? If it does not pass tonight, we continue on the track that we've been on, which will result in us awarding to a contractor early fall and mid-fall maybe, which is kind of September, October, and starting to move dirt potentially in September here. We have a low bidder for that project, and they are in the area right now doing other work, and so I know that they're interested in going ahead with the work. So I'm happy to support council through answering any questions I can, or if you have questions about the process, Coordinator Balabono and I will do our best. And good luck.
Thank you for that recap. Councillor Hibbs?
Just a quick question. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So let's make the assumption that the motion before us would pass. So would that mean that administration then would be bringing back like details as to like other options? Like how involved is what administration is going to come back with? Because like, for example, we're being asked to reconsider today, but we don't really have any like information to do so. We're just literally just being asked to just take a a second look at something that we actually did spend a fair amount of time on already. So I guess that's what I'm looking for clarification.
So, because of some of the interests that I know councillors have in other options, I would say if this were to pass, we would recommend going in camera to talk about what other options you or council would want explored and how that exploration would occur, timelines, that sort of thing. We would all come to agreement on what that looks like, and then potentially bring that back on a timeline. I mean, council is free to set whatever timeline you wish. Although, of course, especially if things are on pause, you are going to see probably potentially escalating costs, as you heard from our economists last meeting, and potential delays in the project if you do delay there. If you choose to go ahead, not all the costs will be sunk costs because site preparation does have some value, but there will be some costs if you go ahead and then choose to go with a different option.
Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Because it is a land matter and we're not in camera, I won't spell out what the other options are, but everyone at this table knows what it is. So I don't think, I think as much as I don't want to delay with the path we're on, I think we need to do our due diligence and just explore this other option. I don't think it would take a lot of time to explore that other option. I guess what I'm saying is I am confident that we could still, once we've explored that other option, still proceed late fall on the track that we've agreed to, if that makes more sense. But I think we owe it to our citizens just to take a look at this other option, because there's something there. And I think I would be disappointed if we didn't, just because I think it's an opportunity where maybe things could be more financially make more sense if we did that. So trying to talk around it, but anyways, so I would be in favor of reconsideration at this time.
Thanks, Councillor Connick. Chief Gowdy?
Just to make sure council's aware, you can vote to go in camera right now if you want to talk about those options and not have to dance around it. You're free to go in camera to discuss any legal or land matter at any time you wanted. So the reconsideration of a past motion, that's not a in-camera thing, but if your deliberation of that item requires discussion of things that should be discussed in camera, a councillor is free to make a in-camera motion and do so.
Very good, thank you.
Is that possible when there's a motion on the floor? Sorry, Mayor, just wanted to throw that.
Yes, to go on camera, there certainly is. You bet. Just to expand on that point that you made, I think that's one of the things I've always admired about this council is their willingness to consider and explore cost-saving measures for the citizens of Lacombe. And I think that you're correct in that there are things that need to be looked at. But I want to remind us that, in fact, they were looked at several years ago for the majority of the intended proposal. There is an additional portion, albeit a minor in comparison, but I think that it has been explored. So that's why it certainly happy to listen to additional input. But I think it's important that people realize that this was looked at. The majority of this proposal was looked back in 2019, I believe. So just wanted to keep that in mind. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I look at a $10 million project now, and we've went into Public Works in the last two locations of repurposing buildings that was never designed for the current use or current use of expansion. So now if you take a $10 million building and we renovate this current location to meet the current needs, it's still not architecturally designed to meet the needs where you can add on as base or with the proper engineering. Because if you, as we had a financial presentation of inflation of 2.5%, you compound that over 20 years that we have to now replace our repurposed building. We're going from 10 million to 15, 17 million in 20 years. And the process was, and their capital plan was, we put together a committee. We spent how many time in engineering of administration to get to this point. And I understand the intention of the motion. God help us if we have to go through this for a fire hall, but I just start from scratch for the first time, and how many repurposed buildings the public works has been into in my lifetime of remembering. And please design it so it can be added on properly. And yeah, I look at redoing this in 15 or 20 years to the next future councils. They're going to be looking at 15 or 17 million if you do compounded inflation of 2.5%. And I'd rather just do it from scratch now.
Thank you, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Thanks, Mayor Creasy. You mentioned that we looked at this a few years ago, and you're correct, we have, but there's an added parcel of land, and that makes the difference. That makes the difference this time around. And so the desire isn't to renovate a building that we'll have to do a new build in 20 years. It's to renovate something that will work for our public works departments. I'm just with Councillor Connick. I think we owe it to our citizens to look at this.
Thank you. Councillor Connick.
So I would just going to make a motion moving camera, but we can continue on this route. I just want to make sure we're all clear. I don't know if Councillor Dallas is clear what the other options are either. Maybe we should just go into camera and be very crystal clear. I don't know. Anyways.
All right, just see no other lights on. We have a motion before us to go in camera. I will call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous to move wants to stay in camera, but didn't have anything to say. So, totally, totally. That is all in camera. And remind everyone that we are back on stream, on air as it were. And I believe before we moved in camera, we have the motion, the original motion on the floor. And just so everybody's on the same page, and because we did take a break from the stream, I would have Coordinator Bellabona read that back into the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The motion on the floor is that council reconsider motion 31621.0422 MO passed April 25th, 2022 regarding that council direct administration to tender the Public Works Facility project as design build. That was by Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you. Councillor Conick?
And so just to be clear, in order for this motion to pass, it must be 5, correct? Even though it might be 4, but it has to be 5, correct? Thank you.
That is correct.
Any other questions or concerns? Are we going to the question? One last look. I don't see a hand up from our online participant. So with respect to the motion before us, formally a notice of motion, I will call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion is defeated 4-3. I expect Coordinator Bellabona will record those accordingly to votes given. Thank you, everyone. Keep on hearing a button like I'm looking for a light here, but Councillor Conick.
I did turn that. Well, I did now. Before we go back in camera, can I suggest a quick recess and then we go back in camera, or?
You most certainly can, but rather than leaving online viewers hanging here, if we are going to go to in camera, I would suggest that perhaps we make that appropriate motion, and absolutely a break will be the first part of it. But for them to expect something else to be happening on stream, I don't think is fair.
Motion move back in camera.
Thank you. And whoever can read on the word, thank you very much. 802 made then. All those in favor? And that is unanimous.